Welcome to Insight into Iceland for day 8 of the 2021 Mid-Season Invitational. It's May 15th. Wrapped up the second day of the Rumble stage of the tournament. And most of the day, I think, went relatively to script, but there were a couple things that went a little different. So let's recap the games to start out, as we've been doing. So the first game was Pentanet against RNG. I mean, I'm not going to dwell too much on these Pentanet games other than to say they had some skirmishy moments. They won a few fights, but given the state of the game at all of those various kind of kills they picked up and little fight wins or even fights they had, it didn't look like there was a whole lot of chance Pentanet was going to get back in. There was a mid lane 5v5 team fight a little later on where it looked like Pentanet, like they won that fight and looked like they might have a chance, but then, it only took a minute or so afterwards for the respawns and teleports to come in. RNG kind of bought those fights back, bought the kills back, and caught them out. So, I'd say Pentanet didn't get completely rolled over. To their credit, good for them, but it was a relatively straightforward RNG win. Then we had Damwon against C9, and this was an interesting, rematch from Cloud9 taking a game off Damwon the last time they faced in the group stage. And Cloud9, I think, looked better this game than they did yesterday. In the two losses they had yesterday, they had some nice early planning. They had Blabber on the Udyr. They had a pretty interesting composition: Karma, Udyr, Lucian, Ashe, Lulu. So a lot of shielding and kind of mage utility from the top and support positions. Pick potential with the Ashe and with the Udyr being able to kind of be that front line and layer CC in and do all of that. And Cloud9 got a lead on this. They had some really nice pathing and a nice early plan for how they're going to manage the Scuttle Crabs and all that kind of stuff. Blabber camped the bot lane, had some good ganks. They got the lead they needed with this comp. Damwon had a comp that was going to be easier to execute in the 5v5s with Scion, Rumble, Syndra, Senna, and Tahm Kench. C9, I think, had to have a really nice lead and control a lot of things and not get caught by the Syndra, get caught by Rumble ults and things like that. And they were doing a pretty good job of it, getting some picks. They even got a Baron, but then they didn't approach the fourth dragon of the game. I'm pretty sure they had stacked up the 3 to that point, and they were threatening Soul. They didn't approach it in the cleanest way. They gave up a few picks. There were different moments in this game where someone would face check and get caught out. I believe this is the game. There was an Udyr in both games for Cloud9 this game, so without scrolling through all my notes in detail, which maybe I should have done before this, but there were different moments where there were face checks that got caught and punished. And in this case, they just didn't set up their dragon that cleanly. Damwon were able to do what they do best, which is win late game team fights. And at the moment that Damwon kind of won their first fight and got control, it was kind of over from there, just compositionally. Cloud9 tried to bring it back with some Lucian side laning, but side laning against the Tahm Kench and Damwon's ability to collapse on a side laner just didn't really work out and wasn't going to, and that's not what Cloud9's comp was designed to do. So I think they put themselves in a position with a kind of a different style of team comp where they could have won it out, and they were doing the right things, but it wasn't quite clean enough. Damwon are too good a team for you to execute at 90 or 95% of what your comp needs to reach its win conditions, and Damwon managed to take it. So I thought this game had some really this was a disappointing game for them to lose, but it wasn't one that should have been crushing for C9 because they showed a lot of good things. And they weren't favored against Damwon in general. Game 3 then happened, Mad against RNG, and I thought this was probably the two best teams of the tournament so far. So excited about this one. RNG got in control early. They were playing a comp that wanted to be more active. Gnar, Olaf, Twisted Fate, Aphelios, Thresh. You've got a kill lane bot. You've got a Gnar that can get pressure early in the lane, depending on the matchup, and a Twisted Fate to play into both of those. Mad had more of a 5v5, just straight up team fighting comp with Armut's Wukong that they've brought out a lot this year. Morgana, Orianna, Jinx, Tahm Kench. So RNG were attacking in the early game. They got some control. They got the first dragon. They got the first herald. It seemed like Mad might be holding on enough. Like this wasn't like a super active, play after play after play from RNG like sometimes you get from these TF games. Mad were still hanging in there. They found a team fight in the top side of the map where Armut got a quadra kill, and it seemed like, okay, Mad have come online. But then RNG did some really great things, and this is kind of my first big takeaway from the day is RNG did some great things with the way they played the map, the way they forced the action into certain parts of the map at different times, and they never allowed Mad Lions 5v5 to get set up in the right place or at the right time on the right item spikes. Right at 21 minutes, RNG forced a Baron call, which should, in theory, in some ways be good for Mad Lions 5v5, and they want to go at these big neutral objective setups and fight for it, but RNG had they were there fast enough and burned it down fast enough, even at the 21-minute mark, that Mad Lions couldn't quite get there in time. I believe Mad found 1 or 2 kills on the backside of it, but RNG got to bring that Baron buff home with them. And then they just started rotating all around the map and just never letting Mad Lions set up a clean 5v5 approach where both teams could be posturing the way they wanted. And RNG just kind of ran them around the map and won the game that way. And finally, like even to the extent of bringing TF into a side lane to kind of backdoor an inhibitor and things like that when Mad Lions were trying to force the 5v5s to happen. And finally getting kind of some picks in the side lanes, using that side lane pressure. Really great showing of the thing that everyone has been saying about RNG, and I think especially Kelsey Moser deserves a lot of credit for, at least bringing this to my attention. She's not the only one saying it, but that RNG's greatest strength is their ability to use these side lanes to kind of play the map game back and forth and rotate all the rotations and all of that. So this was a great showing of that for them. But I thought Mad Lions had some positive things too, and this was a good game all around. Game 4, Cloud9 were back at it, and this is the one that feels really bad. They're playing PSG. This is the team that you'd expect. These two are contesting for that 4th spot in the knockout stage in the semifinals. And so Cloud9 really wanted to win this one. You can lose to the other 3 teams, but you got to beat PSG and you got to beat Pentanet. So Cloud9 again did some good things in the early game. Blabber on the Udyr again, playing with comfort. He was just clearing faster. I think River did some things on his Morgana where they both traded unsynchronized full clears. Blabber clearing top to bottom, River clearing bot to top, but River didn't immediately recall after finishing his path to Crab. Hanabi was working on crashing a wave. River pathed over and started leaning into the enemy jungle to see maybe there's a dive setup here, or maybe I have to cover for a gank. But it ended up being a bit of a waste of time because Fudge was able to use his set to just kind of clear that wave, and there was neither a Blabber gank nor a dive opportunity there. So Blabber was quite a bit ahead on his first reset. He ran to the top side. Hanabi had the next wave push in as well and moved down into River. Might have been looking to gank mid, might have just been looking to kind of check some vision and get info on what Blabber was doing, because it seemed like they might not have had the best read on his pathing. And Blabber just caught Hanabi in the river, chased him down, flashed through the Baron pit, and caught him for first blood. So Cloud9 got ahead. They were doing well. But then Maple on Akali in the mid lane, he kind of took over in the mid game. He found some solo kills. Cloud9 made some more individual mistakes. Blabber was standing too far forward in the mid lane, trusting in kind of the Lulu shielding from Vulcan. Seemed like he wanted a fight when maybe Cloud9 didn't really need one, and maybe the rest of the team wasn't really prepared for it. So PSG found Blabber there, burned a lot of the Lulu defensive skills, and Blabber had to, run away from it. And PSG just dogpiled in on that, which is something their comp was kind of good at. Kali, Kaisa, Lee Sin all wanting to dive in together with the Leona CC going in on top of it. And they got an ace from that. They got a Baron from it. There was still, some really good compositional tools from Cloud9 that they could have made a comeback here, but there was another individual mistake. Fudge was kind of rotating up through the bot side river to start to set up for a dragon spawn. He did some face checking. He got caught for it. PSG got the perfect team fight set up for themselves, which was the Lee Sin and the Akali kind of flanking from different sides and having a pincer maneuver, and they got right in on top of Sven's Kog'Maw. Again, Vulcan had to use some of his Lulu defensive tools to get Fudge out of trouble. So they didn't have all their tools available to defend from these all-ins from PSG, and to their credit, PSG used it well and won that fight. Cloud9 lost the game. Now they're 0-4. Now this feels really bad. And we get into the kind of the second big takeaway from the day, which is obviously Cloud9 being 0-4 so far. I think the way they played today was a lot more encouraging than yesterday, but with the 4 losses in a row, it starts to stack up. It starts to feel really bad. And now to get out of the knockout stage, now they have to match everything PSG does and beat them next time around, and then probably play a tiebreaker. Other things can happen. There are 3 days left. We could get some upsets either way, and that could either, if PSG pull off some upsets, maybe they could just make it impossible for Cloud9. If Cloud9 gets some upsets, maybe they can, win out without having to tiebreak, but they're under the gun, right? Cloud9 are definitely not entirely in control of their own fate here. They need things to go a certain way, and they need to do everything themselves. Fudge was in the media scrum afterwards, was talking about obviously their struggles so far, and really feeling like it was due to their own misplays or their own misexecution of their team comps and their win conditions. So focusing on themselves, which I think is correct, and I think that's accurate to how they've been playing so far, is they've been costing themselves, whether it's just the individual mistakes that we've kind of really harped on so far at MSI, and saw more of today, poor face checks, mistimings, slight mispositionings going into team fights. Perks had some of those today where, they needed to position pretty perfectly, so it's not like it's a huge mistake, but a minor misposition getting caught out on his Lucian or whatever it was, and they needed to be closer to perfect, which is a hard thing to ask for, but it's what you need to do at this level. So it's been pretty frustrating. I think I'm sure it's frustrating for them, and the coaching staff has to be figuring out how to keep them focused on the future, moving forward, and what they can do to set things back on course. But Cloud9 aren't completely. They don't need things to go completely. They don't need to pull off a whole bunch of massive upsets to make it out. It is still pretty doable to get out in fourth, and as long as you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. Best of fives might be more comfortable for them, whatever it is. So feels bad for Cloud9, but we'll see what takes place in the next 3 days. We had another Pentanet game with Damwon. There's nothing to say about this game. Damwon just cleaned them up start to finish. And then Mad Lions took on PSG. And this was another really good game. It was really back and forth. There were a lot of ganks back and forth on all around the map from both junglers. Then as we started to get into the mid game, there was a really tense kind of standoff around the second Herald where Mad Lions kind of took the lead back. Both teams had kind of exchanged kind of small leads in amounts of control and some dragons and things like that. But Mad Lions kind of grabbed the lead at the second Herald. There were no kills in that fight, but a lot of health traded back and forth, and they got it. They used that to kind of extend their gold lead through the top lane, where Armored had been playing Jace. He hadn't really been dominating that lane, not to the extent that the Jace versus Gnar matchup probably should go, but it was enough with that Herald to kind of break that open. Some more tense team fights, lots of kills going back and forth on them, but finally at the fifth dragon of the game, I believe at this point, Mad had three PSG had 3 and Mad had 1 dragon, so it was a potential soul. This team fight needed to to really be engaged on hard. A lot of low health targets at the end of it, and Karzi's Tristana cleaned up all the low health targets and got a triple kill. And it was a dominant enough fight win for Mad Lions. They were able to get the Baron on it as well, so they managed to kind of take the small lead they had, turn it into a big lead, and close it out from there. Really, I thought a pretty well played game on both sides. Really entertaining one. And again, Mad have been, I would say, the most fun team to watch so far at the tournament. Not only because they've been playing quite well, but because they've had enough moments of not playing well and in kind of mid-game, kind of partial throws or whatever, that you're still on the edge of your seat, not sure what's going to happen. So looking forward to watching Mad play out. Again, I still think Mad Lions and RNG look like the two best teams so far from what we've actually seen in the games. Damwon have enough quality that if they kind of clean up the way they've been playing, they should be able to overtake Mad, but they haven't shown it yet. So I'm giving Mad Lions credit for that. Pretty good day of games overall. Doesn't feel good as an NA fan, but we got 3 more days at least, and a game against Pentanet coming up, and as others have pointed out, Cloud9 will get to have some blue side games, which has been, I think, pretty advantaged in this meta. So not quite time to despair yet, but we can be entertained, and we can cheer for the rest of the teams as well, and some good play, because I think the level of play is, in general, leveling up at MSI as we go on as well. So that's the recap for today, and we'll be back tomorrow with the next one, and hopefully a couple of C9 wins, but should be at least one, and we can start to feel okay about that. Thanks for watching.